Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, an MCU fan podcast. My name is Jordan. With me here is Chris. How are you, today, Chris?
I am doing great. What can I say? It's an ultimate Monday.
It is, and I was a little busy this weekend, so we didn't have time to record before. Ron's not able to join us today, but we are talking Ultimate Spider-Man issue 4. Issue 4, and this is written by Jonathan Hickman. The art is now taken over by David Messina. He takes over for Marco Cicchetto. Um, and Messina is going to be going forward. I know it says guest artist here, but they announced he's going to be kind of taking over the book, starting with issue 5. But really, since he's the one that drew this, kind of starts it over with issue 4 here. Um, yeah, so I kind of mentioned I had some hot takes maybe about this issue. Um, because I'll tell you, Chris, this is my favorite of the Ultimate issues so far.
Whoa. Well, no, I do think it was a good story. It was, a practical scene. I don't think it was filler. I actually think it served its purpose. But favorite, that's a bold stretch there. That's a bold take. So, hit me with it, Jordan. Hit me. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I think it has so much good character work, and really you get this very interesting, almost like battle of the egos between Peter and Harry, and their ideals are kind of coming out in this dinner under the surface for a little bit,
Uh-huh.
and then at the very end, it's gonna come out even more above it. But I also want to point out some things with the art that I really enjoyed. And I don't know if this is because of Messina taking over or if Hickman wrote it like this. But one thing that I found very interesting is anytime they're at the dinner table, it is a 9 panel grid. And you're going through, and it helps get so much of so much more text and story on a 9 panel,
Mm-hmm.
because you're constantly hitting the boom, 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 like, and the way you're reading it is very like almost like reading a what I would call like a thriller novel, where I'm turning the page, right? Like constantly, like, all right, what's next? What's next? What's next? So here it is. Here's panel 1, right? Like there's another panel like this. They do kind of get creative with it too, where if you see in the top right corner, right, you have on this second page of it that I have, MJ in the middle, but her body continuing into the next frame.
Mm-hmm.
And you see stuff like this throughout the exchanges, or the bubbles start overlapping more. We get really cool stuff like on this third page where you see MJ's reflection in the glass. So you start getting more and more with that. But anytime they're not there, the first time it's real noticeable to me is like when they go to Uncle Ben and JJJ, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is like completely no more 9 panel. They've changed how it looks. They're doing different things. When they go to the bathroom, MJ and Gwen go to the bathroom. It is not 9 panel, but the real places where it breaks up is the introduction to Gwen, because at first they're all sitting
Mm-hmm.
around waiting for Gwen, and like this panel is one of the first things that breaks that 9 panel structure. But where it really hits you and where it really made me feel like it worked is this panel. It's going 9 panel up until Harry has to drop, "You have great power, and with great power comes great responsibility. It's such a gift, but only if you use it." So this
Mm-hmm.
is to accentuate and to highlight what Harry is saying here. Because it's the only time at the table itself that it breaks from the 9 panel. It even starts as it, right? Like that first panel starts as a regular 9 panel, and then like this one kind of stretches into the two, but it still has the borders. And then we just go into a whole different thing as he starts saying "and you." you have great power. So it made it really feel like on my end that really stood out to me and made me think that this um it made it really hit for me, I guess you would say, right? Like uh I'm flying through reading this book, you know,
Mhm.
going 9 panels, and that starts once Harry enters and starts talking to them in conversation. Like I said, it breaks with the panel of Gwen. It breaks here, and then we get right back into it at the table again, right back into those 9 panels. And anytime they're not at that table, it leaves that. And I just thought it was really well structured and really made the ending stick out to me with the great power comes great responsibility. So much so that I thought that was going to be the end of the book. But then we do flip over and we do see MJ and Peter talking again, not in a 9 panel at the end of dinner, talking about their experience at dinner. But it was very well structured. Is my main point here, and it was something that really hit me and made that line stand out a lot.
I think that's a great point. I really do like the 9 panel stories usually. Like, I just like that structure. It almost has, like, a Frank Miller vibe to it. But I really enjoyed the art in this as well. I thought, we talked so much about coloring with Deadpool and Wolverine. I thought the coloring in this was fantastic. Like, I thought it just popped. You had to make the images really stand out in this because this was an actionless episode. There was a lot going on, but it was an actionless episode. So the images really had to pop. And I will tell you, the Gwen Stacy thing, I was like, okay, there she is. Because you kind of filled all the boxes, in the twists in all this universe. And this feels aligned to the twists that we're having in this ultimate run. So I like that. I also liked that MJ and Peter thought they were a little much. You got the power couple, and then you kind of got a real couple, like a real people couple, and I think that's interesting. You kind of got the a little more homespun Spider-Man, and you have the a little more eccentric, egotistical, um, go 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 go, Gwen and Harry. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, we all kind of thought, right? Gwen was probably coming when he's mentioning his wife. You're thinking, who else can it be other than Gwen Stacy, right? Like,
Hmm.
we hadn't seen her yet. We didn't know where she was in this Ultimate Universe. I don't think it lands well in any other way if it's not Gwen Stacy. So that really worked for me. But of course, this Gwen's a little different, right? She is
Hmm.
apparently this like kind of the CEO right now of Oscorp, as Harry's kind of doing his own stuff right now. But what we also learn is that Harry and Gwen are uh they've been married for quite a while. Harry can't recall the exact time. Gwen knows the exact day of how long they've been together. But Harry says he doesn't keep secrets from her and that she knows everything. And he is, he's able to deduce, right, that Peter hasn't told MJ any of this stuff.
Hmm.
And I think that's one reason why this story was really working well for me too. Is it felt like some of the other issues may have had more action or more stuff going on at times, but this one got to where we need it to get, and that is we needed to start hearing this from Peter and from Harry on why they've told people what they've told people. At this point, while it's been 4 issues, Peter is hiding this for 4 months. Remember, each issue is in a different month as they start out the issue saying this is April. So at this point, it's been 3 to 4 months that he's been hiding this from his wife. And when in the earlier ones, it feels like MJ hasn't been as present in the story as I would have liked so far, even though I've liked the other issues. But in this one, she's very present, and we're kind of getting more of their dynamic, which is something that I really wanted to see going into this series, right? Because going into the
Hmm.
series, we were seeing that Peter was going to be married and have kids before he became Spider-Man. I want to see more of that dynamic. And it makes me wonder now, does he take any of what Harry has said and tell MJ or not? It seems like at the end it's a no still because it looks like he's about to tell her about the world needing heroes and she says, "What do I not need heroes for when I got you?" And it makes me think that he's going to back away from
Hmm.
saying anything at
Yeah.
that point. And, that this will become a point of contention maybe later on in the story.
Well, especially because the daughter's involved in the secret, and that's a little interesting. I actually think it's really awesome as like I'm seeing my brother with his baby girl, and like she's like such a daddy's girl, and she's so into like that relationship is so pure and awesome, and it's just like, dude, that's awesome that like you can have that with her, but at the same time, you're kind of keeping that from MJ, and that's a little weird. So I think the longer they keep that tangled, and the longer that she knows, and she's the only one that knows, I think that's going to be a problem for MJ.
Yes, I could see MJ getting upset that she would know because it could potentially put her in danger,
Hmm.
right? The daughter, but I don't know if that's where they're gonna go with this. But we do have Harry and Gwen who have this whole conversation about not having kids, right?
Hmm.
Harry mentions he doesn't want to. Maybe it's the world we'd be bringing them into, and I think that's important because the next issue synopsis here is all about Harry Osborn, the secret history of Harry Osborn. How does the heir apparent of Oscorp become a mass vigilante? And what does the Green Goblin know of the true status of the world he lives in? All and more will be revealed. Now we've talked about it in the past that this world is different, right? There's
Hmm.
actually no United States. This is broken into all different empires and different little sections. So when Harry is saying that, he's talking about the world that they currently live in. But with the synopsis for next month, saying what does he know about the world structure, makes me think the answer to that question in the synopsis is yes, he does know a lot about it because of this line. I think he probably knows more than he's letting on here about how this world is maybe structured or
Hmm.
who's running it.
I think the way that panel looks too, with the shadows and the dark
Yes.
and what he's saying, he's a little more cynical. I think that's setting up the root like element of his character. Like he Spider-Man's going to end up being the hero, and he's going to end up. I don't want to say that Harry's going to end up being the villain because I don't really see them going that way like fully. But I think he's the Green Goblin's going to be that anti-hero on the line kind of a guy down the line, I think. And I mean, they're just setting it up, and that it almost looks like he has a mask on with all those shadows. It's a very dark panel, and none of the other restaurant scene is kind of like that. So it's pretty cool.
Well, what if he dies? Right? So this is my thought here. This is maybe a
Okay.
theory I've got going on. The person that usually tells Peter this line about great power comes great responsibility is not usually long for the world, right? They
You're not
usually die.
wrong. It's
Aunt
a
May
morbid thing
in
to
No
laugh
Way
at.
Home,
Yeah.
right? Uncle Ben is usually the one that says it. He's died. Aunt May in No Way Home dies.
And the
Um,
shadows could be foreshadowing of
it could be.
hinting at
It
that.
could be.
Yeah.
So my thought is maybe he will he will die in this and maybe that's what really hits Peter is at this point in this conversation of I don't know if I can do this, right?
Right.
I don't know if I want to do this, whatever this is. And that's when Harry pretty much tells him, I've seen you out there, I know you can do it, but also you have to because you have power. I'm just a guy in a suit and I'm doing it. You actually have been bestowed power, and with that power comes great responsibility. So I
Hmm.
could see that being a turning point for Peter if Harry is to die.
Yeah, that would be a catalyst for him and be his rallying moment for being Spider-Man and for picking up the crusade. So yeah, I like I'm picking up what you're throwing at me, and I like what you're going with. It's interesting. I'm very interested to see the pace of this because we know the first arc of the story is almost over. So
2 issues. Issue
yeah,
6 is the end of the arc here.
and it's issue 4. So I mean, we're moving along. I feel like not as much has happened. I feel like this next 2 issues are going to be whew, like real fast coming at you.
Yeah, well, issue 5 is mostly about Harry, so I think most of what we're gonna get is in issue 6,
Hmm.
when it comes to that. But maybe that's what I so maybe issue 5 is about Harry's past, but also has part of Harry's future. Maybe that's when he dies, right? Like, if I'm speculating here. And then issue 6 is Peter being affected by that and taking down, like, Kingpin.
So you're really going out of the limb with the death thing. Like I'm like, oh, I can see it. Like I know where you're going, but you're like almost booking on it at this point.
Well, I'm not booking on it. I'm just if I'm speculating, right?
Yeah, yeah, as we do.
Yeah, I mean, it I could be totally off base, but I'm just saying if we're wrapping up this arc or the first arc, I do think something big would probably have to happen. Maybe not just taking down Kingpin, but also something a loss of something for Peter that makes him determined to use his power for good. We
Hmm.
haven't had that catalyst yet. He's only kind of doing this because he was told by Tony Stark that at one point in another world he would have been Spider-Man, right? So he's doing this for nothing that he's had no catalyst moment the way
Right.
he does in these other adaptations we've seen or other comic runs we've seen where he gets the power, something bad happens, and he realizes, I've got to do this. And I'm not saying something bad has to happen for him to do that, but I do think he needs something where he's able to say, you know what? Yes, I am going to do this. I am going to do this. And I'm, you know, because like we said in this issue here, he's very wishy washy on if he even wants to continue it.
I think Spider-Man at this point is a curiosity for him. It's a thing in the back of his mind that is kind of stuck there, and it's like an itch on him almost, and he's got to like play it out to see what he thinks about it. But you're right, that catalyst moment, and with Spider-Man, it's always about, they say the great power comes with great responsibility. Spider-Man is always a story about balancing the amazing gifts with the amazing costs of being a hero. So I mean, No Way Home was a very, very much in that the whole trilogy there for that, but it always comes back to that for Spider-Man. So yeah, I like what you're putting down. I get it. I like what you're putting down. We'll see what happens.
Another thing I thought was interesting, right, is that we did learn Uncle Ben's and JJJ's newspaper name, right? They're not actually going to be a newspaper; they're going to be digital online, but they're going to call themselves the paper.
Yeah.
And MJ helped them come up with that. She's like a PR person um, at this point. Gwen is pro the paper, not just the
Hmm.
name, but she thinks that these guys can actually do something. Harry is very more like finds it as a joke. He says this is a closed system. He doesn't see a way for them to break into it. Now Gwen is pushing back on that, saying, "Hey, if they tell this stuff unsanitized, there's a path there." Is kind of what she's getting to, and she mentions about how the coverage of Spider-Man. She doesn't drop the name, right? But the coverage of Spider-Man um, has been very sanitized at the Bugle.
Hmm.
And she kind of hints that Peter could maybe let his uncle use photos at the paper. He says, I work at the Bugle. And she says, "You always will with that attitude."
I love
And
that
I
line.
love that
I
line.
That's a great line. I was just about I was like, you're teeing me up. I'm just about to say it. I'm so glad you mentioned it. That was great. I really like Gwen Stacy in this. She's
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah, and she at the bathroom time with MJ thinks maybe she's trying to give her money, but she actually wants to invest some money into the paper,
Right.
which I think is very interesting. So Oscorp may be dipping their toe into the paper.
And then you
I don't,
wonder what the ulterior motives are there too. There's
well,
always something you want.
if she knows everything about Green Goblin,
She
like
knows
Harry
Peter
says,
Spider-Man.
or she might know that, but I'm thinking she knows Harry's Goblin, right? Uh,
Yeah.
and Goblin hasn't been getting any play over in the Bugle because Fisk's sweeping that under the rug, right?
And
Because
maybe
he doesn't
that's
want
where
people to
Harry's
know.
resistance is coming from. Maybe
Maybe
that's
so.
where
Yeah.
Harry's resistance is coming from because he's like, dude, Fisk is gonna shut all this down. It's not gonna play. I could see that. I like where you're going.
And Harry's line too of the closed system could just be not just media wise, but he could be referring again to the state of the world that they live in, right? Kingpin is the kingpin. He owns the media that's there, the Bugle, and he's also like the ruler of that area from what we look at on the map and everything. So
Hmm.
it might be he's referring more to that. I think a lot of times people are reading this stuff as if it takes place in our world, where I think there's, of course, nods to that kind of stuff. But we are living in a very different world than the Ultimate Universe. So when like I said, when he says he's not bringing kids into this world, that's stuff people say about our world as well. But their world is even more messed up. So like there is, it can work both ways from when you're reading it. But my point is with Gwen, maybe she wants to highlight Goblin is taking out some of Kingpin's places. Kingpin's been putting it under the rug. She can maybe use her influence to say Oscorp, with her Oscorp powers to her funding to maybe highlight stuff that the Goblin's doing on Kingpin's properties that have been swept under. And then that's going to get more stuff out there on what the Kingpin's really doing and making more people aware. So I do think she still has good motives about it, but I do think some of those motives are because she knows what Harry's doing as Goblin. But it does make me wonder, do you think then she does know that he is Spider-Man,
I
Peter?
mean, she's got to know if they don't keep secrets. I can't imagine that would be uh not disclosed. Like I feel like that's something that goes with not keeping secrets. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's almost like they're toying with the idea that they know things more, and I wonder how much of that MJ is picking up in this scene. And I find it interesting because they don't give anything away. They're kind of like it's kind of like when you're in the group chat and you've seen something before the other people, and like you got to know they know something, but they didn't spoil it.
Right. Um so I guess one thing I'm really curious on too is there was, JJ is not big on the name. He's not big on doing it on digital anyway, right?
Hmm.
But I don't know if we're supposed to be getting more from this or not because um Peter's son tells Uncle Ben like his sister doesn't really like Mr. Jameson, right? Because there's a point where she's like, "When's he leaving?" you know,
Which
and
is
and
so
I'm
blunt and funny.
really wondering if we're supposed to be a little skeptical of JJ because we've never seen him as an ally like this before, and he is. So I don't know if that's going to be something that we got to keep an eye on, a twist coming up with that, or
I didn't take it
just
that way.
yeah. Well, why do you think
I
she doesn't like Jameson? Just because he's like
He's kind
grumpy,
of
or what?
he's like a gruff, grumpy guy. He kind of so like Ben Parker seems like this like fun, good spirited guy, and that whole family seems like it has a certain energy to it. And Jonah is kind of guy who sucks that energy up a little bit. I think he's a curmudgeon-y, crusty, cantankerous fellow.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it's a character flaw. I think it's a personalities do not mesh. Plus, I think what we saw with the daughter there is like with helping Spider-Man with the designs, helping her dad. She has this hopeful, optimistic, like really bubbly, like
Hmm.
excited personality, and I think that they're like as a guy who's always been overly enthusiastic and out there with all that stuff. People have always kind of crunched that down. I think Jay Jonas strikes me as a guy who would, yeah, I'd be a little crunched down with it. It would almost make you feel a little small. I don't necessarily think, oh, they're hinting at a bigger motive because I mean, what does Jay Jonah have to gain from screwing over Ben Parker, his only friend in this
Yeah,
universe?
no, I don't know yet.
So,
So I just thought it was interesting. That was like the only thing we ever got out of the kids and JJ were
well, I think it was cool because
that
the boy is like really into like reading and like
reading. Yeah.
yeah, and like I liked how Uncle Ben was like encouraging that, and I like, hey, you want to watch TV before you go to bed? He's like, no, and he's like, good boy. I was just like, that's
Yes.
all.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's like very grandfatherly stuff. That's like that's what you do. So it was pretty cool. Uncle Ben, you're all right. I like you. It's nice to have Uncle Ben around. I'm so I
Yeah.
almost you almost dread Uncle Ben because you're just like, okay, I get to see him die again.
Right. Right. Yeah. Not this time so far. We've been pretty well with Uncle Ben still alive.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, so that's why I'm thinking it's going to be somebody else that dies for him. It would feel a little. I mean, I know Aunt May has already passed, but
I
like
I like what you're putting down. I really do. I could see Harry, and it's not going to be MJ. So you're running out of people. I mean, I don't think Jay Jonah would hit hard enough. So
no, no.
Harry really is. If that is what you're thinking, Harry really is the guy. You do have a point there.
All right, so by next issue or the next one we see is Peter taking pictures for the paper and not the Bugle.
Ooh, he's going with his heart instead of his pocketbook
Yeah,
because people still have pocketbooks apparently.
they do.
Yeah. Wallets.
Yeah, I think he will be. I think maybe by
Yeah.
then he'll. I think that maybe that line from Gwen maybe stung a bit. But this is the cover for next month here with Harry and Norman on the front. Uh, we get uh, Spider-Man. They just kind of shove Spider-Man on covers, so we haven't seen him in a bit. And
Yeah,
then we have Green Goblin in the sky here. But this is supposed to be about the history of him. I'm assuming it might jump back and forth in time or something.
yeah, I think that's a good bet, and I love it anytime you see Spider-Man in like a crunched, like spider-like position. I'm always down for that, and yeah, they've given him on the cover one way or the other, which I think is probably the best marketing decision. People like Spider-Man. It's not exactly breaking news.
Right, right.
Breaking news: people tend to like this spider guy.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get him on the cover to sell the issues, right? If you just have,
I need
and
my
this way,
pictures of Spider-Man.
this way they did it right.
Peter,
I
where
mean,
are you?
this is actually about the issue, right? Like
Yep.
the issue
Hmm.
here is about him being covered by newspapers and Gwen saying that that was sanitized. And here you have maybe hints to Ben Parker, maybe
Yep.
writing some stuff about him for the paper, though they have this listed as the bulletin here. So I'm assuming This is just for the cover because they're going to be a digital thing. But just still like a cool cover. It's not like they just put like Spider-Man in front of a building or something. This is like actually still related to the main core of the issue.
That cover is so cool because the 3D dimensionality with the cup and the
Yeah,
table is
the
like, and
shadow
the
and all that.
mugs. That's like, that is really good artwork. Like, that cover goes harder than it really has to. You could convey the same exact information with much lazier art. I love the art in this series, and I think they're doing a lot of little details. Like you were talking about the paneling and the structure. I think they're
Mm-hmm.
making a lot of small little details in here that really benefit the story. So I do love the energy that is being put into this. Not that covers aren't usually awesome. I mean, that's literally their job is to make cool looking covers. But
Yeah, so I can't wait for issue 5. That'll be end of the month of May. Then we kind of go mid June, and then we go early July for some of these
nice,
releases, supposedly. So yeah,
nice.
we're gonna be gearing up for
Got to get
that.
that
So
first trade out way too soon. So yeah,
that'll be coming. Yeah, the first trade's in September with the first 6 issues there,
so
so
that makes
you can
sense. Yeah,
make sure you grab those. Yeah, because that'll end in June. So 3 months later, the trade will be out. Um, but yeah, no, I'm really enjoying this. I thought this issue was great. I love getting character stuff like this. This was stuff really feel like we needed to get to. Motivations, great conversations on who knows what, why, who knows what, and kind of setting us up for what is probably going to be issues 5 and 6 here to end this first
yeah.
arc and get us on the right path.
I enjoyed this issue. I'm not gonna lie, I want a little action in there. It's you know, I come for
Well,
that a
see,
little
I'll
bit.
go the other way. I'll say you don't even have to give me action. Give me this every month, and I will be set.
I don't know that I want it every month. But yeah, I do like it. Like I'm not like I care about the characters and I care about the story, so I'm all for it. But I usually like one little scene in the beginning to get me going or something like that.
Hmm.
Or like just oh, I'm late to dinner of Harry. Let me swing down for this window.
Right, right. You can't do that. MJ doesn't know.
Well, she doesn't have. They don't have to be leaving together. You know, there's ways to do that. Just something. Give me a little spider something in there.
Yeah, I can see that, but for me, I kind of like the refreshing nature of it because I feel like there's so many spider books out there that
Hmm.
will give you the boom, pow, kick, stuff that yeah, give me the character themes of it. It felt like a great episode of television or something. Um,
Yeah,
so
it did.
that was great.
It it felt like this would be like honestly, you know what this kind of felt like in the Raimi movies, if we're comparing it to like what we've seen on screen, the Thanksgiving scene in the
Yeah,
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 it had a very much the same vibe as that. So um definitely definitely feel that. You know, not that you had Harry Osborn or anything and you didn't have the ultimate suspense there, but like it had a very similar vibe of it wasn't quite that comfortable.
yeah, yeah. All right. Well, anything else about this issue before we ramp it up?
I think we did a very efficient job. I don't think we really missed on anything. I actually think we went longer than I thought we would, to be honest with you. So that's pretty
You're
cool.
welcome.
Yeah. I you are the MVP of this because you had the hot takes that fueled us, that sustained us. Give me fuel, give me fire, give me the Jordan hot takes I desire.
Yeah, I don't know if they're that hot. I just know from our chat they were hot takes because, like,
Yeah,
it's actually still a very well reviewed issue. But I know, like, I think Ron said it was a very mid issue.
it just didn't strike my spider fancy. See, it's an expectation thing. Like I'm like
Hmm.
because you had each issue you got in a little bit of the Spider-Man stuff, even if it was just him in a web hammock with donuts. You know, you got a little Spidey stuff in each episode, each issue. So, you know, I like a little Spidey in there, but you know, it's a good story. I'm not knocking it. It's important. I just, you know, I want to go.
Uh, yeah, so that'll wrap us up
Get
here.
some webs going.
If you want to give us a follow, you can reach us on Twitter at TO Infinity Saga. We'll be doing Ultimate Spider-Man recaps every single month. Discussions like this. Um, Usually Ron, I, and
Yep.
Chris would be on here. Schedule wise, just kind of make it work this time, but we will hopefully going forward have the three of us here again on that. Next, later this week, we will be dropping X-Men 97. We have our episode 8 recap that'll be dropping late Wednesday after the show premieres. So make sure you check that out. And then over on Pod Awakens, our Star Wars podcast, we have our Phantom Menace 25th anniversary special that'll be dropping on May 4th. So make sure you check that out.
Nice.
I am going to see the movie on
So
Sunday,
am
May
I.
5th. You're seeing it the
Oh,
4th.
the fourth. Yeah, I'm seeing it Star Wars Day. Yep.
And I think Ron is
Absolutely.
seeing it Friday. So we're all
Okay.
seeing it on the weekend. It's going to be great. Can't wait to experience it in a theater, which I have not done yet. So make sure you also email us marvelplusrecaps@gmail.com if you want to send us any sort of long form feedback, or
Yep.
facebook.com/infinity saga beyond. Yeah, so thank you all for watching and listening along. You can like and subscribe to us here on the YouTube channel, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and we'll catch you next time when we talk X-Men 97 episode 8.